across East Anglia, and in my role I support students from Year 9 upwards who are studying creative subjects. We're planning on running a few of these workshops that are both live and recorded to support students working from home during this time, because we know that your schools and colleges are closed. So after the workshop, I will be sending an evaluation form to the email address that you signed up with. If you could complete that, it would be really great. Basically, the reason we are able to carry on doing things like this is because we get feedback from you on how you think the session went, etc. So I will send that out afterwards. There is a separate one for teachers, but if you are a teacher, I will send that to you separately. Just a bit of housekeeping, as I mentioned earlier, we are making sure that all of your cameras and audio is off. It's a safeguarding thing that we just have to make sure that that it's off throughout the duration. If you do want to get in touch with me and ask any questions, there is a message function called chat at the bottom of the screen. If you send that on to me, I can ask Nikkita anything that you might have a question about. We are recording this workshop, so it will be available for other students to access, and it will be put up on both the NICO and the NUA YouTube channels. If you see or hear anything during this presentation that is inappropriate, if you have any concerns about the workshop, about anything in general, home life, whatever, please get in touch with me through the message, the chat function at the bottom of the screen. Just so everyone knows, throughout the workshop, if Nikkita is talking and you want to switch to see her instead of the presentation, there is an option at the top that says you can change to speaker view. I'm sure she'll tell you if she's showing you anything, but just so you know, that function is at the top of the screen. If you've got any questions about that, please just let me know in the chat and I will do my best to answer those. I think that's everything from me, so I'm going to hand over to Nikkita now. I will turn my video and my audio off, but I will just nip back in if any of you ask me a question and I relay that to Nikkita. I will just nip back in every so often, and then I'll come back at the end just to wrap everything up. So thank you, and I'll hand over to Nikkita.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So like Emma said, my name is Nikkita Morgan and I'm an Irish textile artist, but I'm based in Edinburgh. So I got a bit about me. I got my first degree in textile art design and craft at the University of Wales in 2013. I then moved to Norwich and attained my master's degree in textile design in 2014. I then decided to move to Edinburgh in 2015 to undertake an artist in residence programme at the Edinburgh College of Art. And I'm still here 5 years later, working as a full-time artist. I spend most of my time in my art studio making mixed media political artworks for exhibitions. I also travel to do some residencies. Some have been local in Edinburgh, others in Ireland and the Middle East. And actually this month, I should have been in Bethlehem doing a collaborative residency with a Palestinian artist, but of course, due to COVID-19, I've had to postpone it. But apart from that, I also work with different organisations on various creative projects, including the University of Edinburgh. And I also teach embroidery workshops for a range of groups, including vulnerable adults, that being prisoners in Edinburgh. So for today's workshop, my idea stemmed from a project that I done during my undergrad degree in Wales. While we were studying textiles, we had to learn non-digital methods for creating surface designs and repeat pattern designs. And this method has always stuck with me. I also use it within my work. So today's workshop, you're going to be creating a simple tile that will be used to create a seamless repeat pattern. We'll be doing this by hand, but there's lots of different methods and techniques of creating your own surfaces, including block printing, screen printing, drawing by hand, and also drawing on digital software such as Photoshop. And this is a simple skill that can apply to hundreds of fun projects. Yeah, you can also sell your own design, so it can be sold as card and gift wrap, furniture and clothing, the fabric designs for that, and also wallpaper. So I'm just going to kind of show you some samples, kind of what we're going to be working towards today. So as you can see here, so these are some of the samples I've done previously. I had some objects set out, so you can see what we're going to do is we're going to draw from our objects in front of us, and we're only going to draw in the center. So you can see I've left the outside area blank, and this is my original. We're always going to keep our original to the side. And then step 2 would be cutting. So you can see my pattern is starting to form here. And then on the back. So again, this is a different design, my original. And then you can see once I've cut it, it's on the outer edges. I then filled in the blank spaces. And then there's this one. So again, the original I drew on paper. This is heavy paper, so again, it's hard to kind of trace through that. So what I've done instead was I traced my design and created the repeat on tracing paper itself. And then this one's slightly different. So I've got my original, and then inside you can see I've drawn 2 different images in the center. And then with your repeat tile, you can just kind of put it any place and it will continuously repeat. So that's the idea behind today's workshop. So first of all, I'm just going to run through what we need just to double check everyone's got all the materials. So we need paper, at least 3 sheets. I've got just plain printing paper, because it's very see-through, so it's easier to trace from. And then scissors, ruler, tape. I've got a marker or a black pen and a pencil. I've also said you can use tracing paper or greaseproof paper, which is usually in the kitchen, is the same thing. So if you don't have any tracing paper, that would also do. But I'll show you what we can use that for towards the end. Okay, so I'm just going to move my screen down. So as you can see, I've got my objects here, what I'm going to draw from. I've used some of my sewing stuff, so I've got my embroidery hoop, I've got some threads, needles, scissors and chalk. And this is my station of objects, what I'm going to draw from. You can use anything else, so you can use stuff found in your household, whether it be fruit, food, plates, furnishings. It's up to yourself, whatever you can take inspiration from, also including flowers from your garden. Okay, so now we're just going to get started. So I'm just going to keep my screen here so you can see what I'm doing. I did mention before, if you have your paper cut into square, that's brilliant. If not, I'm going to show you how we're going to go from a rectangle shape to a square. And we're going to do it for 3 bits of paper. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure the shortest side, which is 21 centimeters. I then bring it to my longest side and I measure down 21 centimeters. I'm going to make 3 lines. The reason being, if you have 3 lines made, it makes sure your line is completely straight. So for this part, we want to make sure everything's cut perfectly. If not, it might offset our final pattern. Okay, so you can see I've drawn my line down. Okay, so that's one sheet, and I want you to measure all three and cut. So again, you measure your shortest side, which I know is 21. I then go to my longest side and measure down 21. I'm just moving my ruler down 3 times. And then I'm just going to do exactly the same on my third bit of paper. Okay. So I know because our paper is quite thin, some people might just want to put it all together and cut, but we just want to do it separately to make sure everything's cut as straight as possible. So then with your scissors, you're just going to cut down this extra bit, and then that will come off, and you'll be left with a square bit of paper. So as you can see, we've now got our 3 bits of square bit of paper. So I'll just give you 1 more minute. Don't worry if you haven't managed to cut all 3. You can always go back later on. So for the next part of this workshop, we're going to use what we've got as our objects. So as you can see, I've laid mine out. What you can do is you don't have to draw everything to scale. So you can have, for instance, my needle. I can do this huge with the scissors really, really small. You can also repeat the images if you like. Again, it's your design. One of the main things you have to remember is do not draw on the outside, only draw in the center. Okay, so So if you'd like to kind of move on now, start sketching out your design of the objects that you have in front of you, and start using a pencil. And this is good to kind of get the layout and the scale of everything, to make sure you've got everything in that will fit. And then once you're happy with that, you would then go over, kind of just draw on top of the lines with either a black marker or pen, preferably, again, because it would make it a lot easier to trace. So with mine, I'm happy enough with my pencil outline. Again, it's just very roughly sketched. I'm then going to refine it and just outline it with my pen. I'm not wanting to add in shading or anything. Again, because we're going to be tracing this image, we want to just keep it simple. So the simpler the outline is, the easier it will be to trace. Because at the end, you can always go back in and add colour or shading. It'll just make it a lot easier. Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys another 2 minutes or so. Just to kind of show you, I have finished my original. So as you can see, I've left all the outside space. What I'm going to do as well, on the back of this in pencil, I'm just going to write original, so I know to keep it. Because you can always go back and rub off your pencil marks. The reason I want you to keep this is so you always keep your original so you can go back to it. So after the next stage, if you don't like what we've done, you can always go back and retrace this, or you can actually use it for a different repeat, whether it be a half drop, because we're just going to do a normal repeat for now in this workshop. Yeah, so just another minute or two just to let you finish off. So yeah, we are doing all this by hand. Again, it's to kind of learn how to do things without any digital assistance. But today you always see repeat patterns done on computers, mainly because it's more accurate and it saves a lot of time. But historically, they were always done usually this way. Okay, so with your image, what we're also wanting to do is, with your 2 blank bits of paper, we're going to trace over it. So you can kind of see with the lightweight paper, you can start to see the lines. If you've got heavier paper, you can put it up to your window and the light will make it shine through, so it'll be a lot easier to trace. And what I want you to do is just to trace your image, so your original image, on both sheets of your paper. And I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to get this stage done. So again, I'm just tracing using my marker. So you can see why it's best just to kind of keep your lines simple. It is a bit tricky sometimes tracing. But again, after the next stage, I will show you an easier way of tracing with tracing paper. Okay. So hopefully you have been able to trace 2 images so far. Don't worry if you haven't. If you've just managed to do one, that's still brilliant because you can always go back later on and do your other one. So like I said before, our original, which I've wrote at the back, we're just going to put that to the side and we're going to be working with either one or two of our traces. Okay, so we'll take one so far. Yeah, so this is the part where we're going to cut it. So we're going to flip it over, and again we're going to measure the halfway point and draw a line down, and again turn it 90 degrees, measure and draw a line down. So I know my edges are 21 centimeter, so all I have to do is measure halfway of that, which is 10.5, and again I will do 3 lines down the center. and then just draw a straight line. It says it's very important that you get this dead on straight. So you can see I draw my line down the center. I then flip my page 90 degrees and I measure halfway again. So because it's a square, I know it's 10.5. So again, I draw 3 lines or 3 markings. So as you can see, I've got my lines drawn. So at the front of your image, you want to decide which way is up. So I'm going to keep my image this way. I'm then going to put it face down. And as you can see, I've got a line down the center, going down the waist. I'm going to cut this page into 2. So remember, choose which way you want to start with. So again, this way, I'm then going to cut down the waist. So now our image is cut in half. What we do is we just flip these over like this, and then we're just going to put it face down, line it up carefully. And then with our tape, we're just going to tape the 2 sides together. Okay, so you can see where the empty space that we left is coming in now. So what we do is, so at the back, I'm going to flip it 90 degrees. And my next line I'm going to cut down is this one. So just to kind of show you, I've got a wee bit of a overhanging edge here. I'm just going to trim this before I move on to the next step, just to make sure it's all completely straight. It's just a wee tiny bit that needs cut. So again, after we've cut, we switch them over. And then we tape this together into the inside and are drawing from the inside to the outside. So again, just measure it up carefully and using your sellotape, just tape the backs together. Now you should all have your image that you drew on the outside, and we've got the inside blank. So no matter what you put on the inside, the outside will always repeat. So that's your tile made for the outside. But now what we want to do is draw on the inside, and again try and cover in some of these lines with our drawing. So again, going back to some of your objects, you can just choose one or two of them. And again, we're just trying to fill in the space in the middle, but do not go to the edges because that will affect your repeating tile. So again, I'm just going to start off drawing with my pencil and then I will go over it with my marker.
Nikkita, we've just had a quick question from Ro. She's asked, can it overlap the drawings around the edge? So if we're filling in the middle bit, can that overlap, like, say I know on yours on the screen, we've got that bit that's got a zip. Could the drawing overlap that?
Oh, so you mean like the bits on the outer edges kind of overlap that? Yes, slightly. If it's inside, just not the very edge. Because you'll see whenever we do our next piece, you'll see how it kind of joins, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I think that answers it for me. Yes, it does. She said thanks, so I'm hoping that's answered it. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, So I'm just kind of finishing off, drawing in my center. So I've kind of just drawn a rough outline. What we will be doing next is, don't worry if you're still drawing the inside, just carry on working away. If not, or sorry, if you have finished, we're going to then do the exact same to our second trace. It's just so if we get it finished, we can kind of see how the pattern will look. Okay, so again, if you haven't finished drawing on the inside, just carry on. But for everyone else, just move on to your next piece. And again, I'll go through what we have to do. So again, this was my top. So I'm just going to put it face down. And then you're just going to measure the inside. Down the center. Flip it 90 degrees, and then you draw halfway point down the center again. Kind of show you again. I've drawn the center down this way and this way. So then because my image is this way up, I'm going to cut down this center line. Okay, so just like before we've cut, we switch. And then you place together, and you're just going to use your sellotape to tape them together. Once it's taped together, remember to flip it 90 degrees, and we cut down the center. So again, we've cut, and we just flip these over. And very carefully just tape them together. As you can see from our two towels, I'll just move this up. So we've got our two towels. This one I drew in the center. This one I haven't. But if I place these together, yeah. So if I start to place these together, I think you can see that on screen. You can see how the pattern works. So again, oh, sorry, if I move it, you can see roughly how it actually repeats. So any place I move it to, it will just automatically repeat. So this next part is, I know we're running short of time, but if you're wanting to carry this on afterwards, you can use what you've drawn in the center. So the image you've drawn in here, you can repeat that, or you can actually draw something completely different in the center. Because remember, you've created your pattern. It's going to repeat no matter what you put in the center. I also just wanted to kind of show you as well a different way of repeating. If you didn't want to trace and trace and trace and cut, you can literally draw one of these, draw your image in the center, and then with tracing paper or greaseproof paper, again, this is what you would find for the kitchen, works exactly the same and is really cheap. You can just lay this down. So you can just lay it down on top of your image. Using a pencil, you can just trace out your lines. So you would literally trace the whole image. And then very carefully, you would just on a blank piece of paper, just go over the lines. The reason being is, you've drew on this side, but we want to trace this side onto the paper, if that makes sense. So basically you could have this tile traced out on this, and then you can actually bring this and trace it onto a bigger piece of paper. For instance, an A1 piece of paper, you can create a massive repeat instead of always cutting up the paper. Okay, so check on time. Yeah, so I'll just give you another minute or two to carry on with your traces. Hopefully you did manage to get 2 of them cut so you can kind of start to place your trace together. Okay. So yeah, some of the images you can see on my PowerPoint. The one on the right was the very first one I had shown you that I'd done by hand. I then scanned in my images into Photoshop where I edited them. So I actually played about with the color and the actual scale. You can also do this by photocopying. So again, if you have a printer at home and you've got one tile drawn, you can actually photocopy that and print it off and actually start to place your own pattern together. Again, you'll not have any of the cut lines. You can even go large scale. So you can actually have, say if you've got an A1 piece of paper at home, you can do this exact same technique, do it on the A1 bit of paper, and then you can actually trace it onto, like, say a roll of wallpaper. So you're actually creating your own wallpaper design, which might be quite nice, especially if you're kind of wanting to get a finished piece of work for submission for school. And just to kind of finish off, if you're looking for a reference for an artist, William Morris is a good person to check out. He was one of the leading members of the arts and crafts movement, and he is best known for his designs, especially repeat designs on fabrics and wallpapers. He kind of combined art with design, and kind of he's really well known, so kind of worthwhile checking out his designs. But other than that, I think, yeah, we've just run out of time. I just kind of want to thank you all for taking part, and I hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned something new.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I just a couple of things to add. You could also check out Kath Kidston, who's a really, like, she does a lot of repeat patterns essentially. I think it's a really great way to introduce like textile repeat pattern. So if you were thinking about maybe going into textiles, this might be something that you would like to develop further. I'd really like to see what everyone's made. So if you do, I know Nikkita's got it on her slide just there. If you do want to share it with us, our Instagram account is @NUA Outreach. It would be like, we share a bunch of stuff on there, so we'd love to see it. We also, I do think we also have a Take Your Place Twitter account, which is @TakeYourPlaceHE. So if you did want to share on there as well, that would be really great. what else do I need to say? I will be sending out the link for you to fill in some feedback for me. That would be brilliant. And other than that, like, just a massive thanks to everyone who's taken part, and especially to Nikkita for such a fabulous workshop. Really enjoyed it. I'm going to, oh, thanks, Amy. Oh, guys, you've all messaged me in the chat, and so the recorded version will go on to basically we have to edit it, and we have to add subtitles, but it will go on to, I think, the Take Your Place YouTube channel, as well as the NUA YouTube channel. So I can send you out a link to both of those channels once it goes up, if you wanted to access it again. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm going to, everyone's sending me such lovely feedback. Someone said, thanks, Nikkita. That was great. So that's a lovely piece of feedback.
I enjoyed it.
It's always really weird presenting to people who you can't see or speak to. Really,
that is the weird thing I have to say, by the way, guys. I'm talking to myself. Anything or anyone, so it is very strange.
Someone else has put it was really fun and interesting. Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. It's up to me to end the meeting, so I will do that now. I hope you've all loved it. If you wanted to send me any feedback on it, you can reach me at arts@takeyourplace.ac.uk. That's art@takeyourplace.ac.uk. I know some of you will have that email and some of you won't, but if you wanted to give me any additional feedback, that would be great. I will end the meeting now. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.